what the government has done for semiconductors goes far beyond normal traditional PLI.
If you get into power electronics, you would be successful for the rest of your life.
India, having 500 million population below the age of 21, is at a cusp of something very big.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, imagine you're mapping your global IT infrastructure for 2027 and suddenly the government beneath it, the foundation for semiconductors shift in India with geopolitical tremor that your enterprise can't ignore. In fact, India through its India Semiconductor Mission and attracting the global firm is approving gigantic chip plant investments, making the country a focal point in the global supply chain reshuffle. So, the next 6 to 7 minutes, I'll walk you through the 3 big strategic shifts this creates for your enterprise IT, 2 hidden cost traps you must preempt, and 1 board level action your CIO or CTO should initiate for this week. So here's the context. For decades, your IT strategy assumed global supply chain would be stable. But the chip shortage of 2020 to 2021 and the export controls and friendly shoring talks and the China-US tech decoupling changes the game. India is now making its move. Shift 1. India is no longer just consumption market. It positions as the global chip manufacturing and design hub that elevates it from the region in your IT map to the strategic zone. For your enterprise tech footprint, that means you must treat India like another center of gravity, not just another back office country. It influences where you locate compute, data centers, and procurement decisions of the vendor strategies. And when a zone becomes strategic, it invades the regulations, localization demands, supply chain redesign, which leads to the direct to cost and risk. Shift 2. The very chips powering your servers, storage, edge devices, and IoT gears are now subject to the supply chain disequilibrium. In India, still imports the high purity wafers, gases, and the critical materials. Global distribution means your IT budget may see a hidden jump. For example, the study notes over the 90% of specialized semiconductor inputs in India are imported, making supply chain is vulnerable and the cost structure unpredictable. So your enterprise IT strategy built on the cost predictability, cloud region, hardware refresh cycle, and the vendor lock-in now need a stress test for supply shocks and the localization risk. Shift 3. The chip industry is now firmly in the process of geopolitics. As the Carnage analysis puts it, semiconductor supply chain becomes the key battlefield in the US-China tech war, and India aligns with a like-minded nation. From a vendor or a strategy predictive, if your architecture includes the components, subsystems, or service tied to the manufacturer and the supply chain exposed to the China and the blocked nodes, you face the risks of cutoffs, sanctions, and the sudden rerouting. India's role means you must elevate Indian region not as just location, but as zone with the specific compliances, vendor exclusions, supply chain strategies. Your IT roadmap that didn't factor this now pay the price. Here is what your board should flag this week. Map all hardware and semiconductor dependency across your IT stack, servers, edges, IoT and storages in India and globally. Stress test your vendor contracts for the supply chain shocks. What if the fab goes offline? What if the exports are restricted? Rework the vendor and procurement strategies, prioritize resilience and diversify the supply chains. And consider local or region sourcing factors. If you don't do this, you risk hidden cost jumps, vendor lock-ins, reroutings, and complaint surprises. Asset obsolescence. It's not hypothetical. The chips beneath your infrastructure are now strategic assets subject to the macro shocks. So here's the truth. For decades, IT strategy was about software, clouds, and data. But now the medium, the hardware, the silicon is becoming the message. India's semiconductor surge and the geopolitical wave means your strategy foundation just shifted. So, you have 2 choices. Treat this as the cost you will absorb in later, or treat this as the strategic opportunity. You realign your strategy, diversify your architecture, and build future-proof resilience. Which one will you choose? If you want a 1-page chip supply resilience scorecard, your board can review in 10 minutes. Comment chip score below and I'll pin it. Subscribe. Next week will be the deep dive into the vendor circuit risk in India and Asia. See you in the next time. Because your IT strategy just made the silicon shockwave.